Montgomery County Tea Party. With me is Tom Chumbley, and he is running for the Woodlands Township position 6. And with us tonight is David Smith, James Byers, Del Fessenden, Dennis Tibbs, and Pat Tibbs. And as we discussed, Tom, why don't you go ahead and open up with your 5-minute opening, and then we'll proceed around the table with questions. And I'll give you about a 30-minute warning when we're done, and then also I will finish up about 10 minutes before the hour. So go ahead.
Okay, great. And I'll refer to my little notes that I brought with me. I didn't know exactly how long I would have and all of that. I wasn't sure at least. So.
Yeah, thanks for coming in.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's a really great thing. I should probably say that. It's a really great thing what you're doing. And I am highly impressed with the process as it's gone so far, and being able to do everything online. So it is so far been the best at going through candidates. So I'm very impressed with that. So thank you for being here and doing that on behalf of the residents and people. So that's a great thing. I guess there's 3 things that I would point out. And that is where we are with the Woodlands right now. Some people are being a little myopic and short-sighted in my view. Some people are taking strong sides on either side, and I'm not really sure if they're listening to one another. So I want to talk about where we are in the Woodlands. I want to talk about the vision of Mr. Mitchell, kind of how that brought us to where we are. And then I'll kind of close out with some discussions of 2 topics, power and leadership. Where we are in the Woodlands is, it kind of reminds me, you probably know this better than I do, but this is just my position on it. It kind of reminds me of a child in your home that's growing up. And they have this naive idea that they could be Peter Pan and they can just kind of, they don't have to go off and work, and they're just wondering what the world's gonna, I could just live with mom and dad forever, and this type of thing. The Woodlands is in a situation where, at some point down the road, the Woodlands is going to be a city. It's going to be a city. It may be many years down the road, way off in the future. It's going to be the city of Houston, it's going to be the city of Conroe, or it's going to be the city of the Woodlands. Okay, this may be very far off, but it's something we have to understand and we can't be naive about. That's something to consider. That's something to put in our calculations as to what's going on in the future. So that's something we can't be naive about. At the same time, I've met people on the other side, and I'm speaking to the incorporation issue, where it doesn't matter what the cost. I received an email today, won't mention names, but simply says, don't even have any further discussions about this. We're not going to, we don't even need to see the study. It's a waste of money to continue with the study. Well, I disagree with that position too. So when I talk to people, they say, so where are you? Are you for incorporation or are you against incorporation? There is no middle ground. There's just this or that, and that's it. Where I am on that is simply this, is that currently we do not have sufficient information on which to make a good call on that. Mike Bass has released information that he's calculated to indicate what future taxes would be. But if you go to your local Randall's, for example, and you're going to buy this pen, and you don't know the cost of it, it doesn't make a great deal of sense to buy it when you know you can get a better deal somewhere else. So there's certain critical information that we need in order to make a decent decision that just isn't available yet. And so for that reason, I would support completing the incorporation study, seeing what methods they use in order to come up with those numbers and make sure that the methods they use are proper. And then move from there. The vision of Mitchell initially was that the Woodlands would be included in the ETJ, that is extraterritorial, territorial. Thank you, that's what I'm trying to say. Extraterritorial jurisdiction of Houston. His original vision for that was that we would be able to actually be an answer, not a problem to Houston's inner city fleeing to the suburbs, but a solution to that. Then as time went on, I hate to say it this way because this might offend people, but he realized himself, it appears, that that might have been a mistake. Is this my time up? So it surely can't be 5 minutes yet. So the vision that he had, oh, that's 5 minutes.
Okay.
Wow, that went by a lot faster. So I guess we'll just leave it there.
You have your 5 minutes at close.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, we
Continue.
can get back to that.
Okay.
I was just trying to put it in context here.
Yep, thanks, appreciate it. What's your occupation right now?
So I work as a leadership consultant. I created my own little business to help people to increase organizational performance, team performance, and individual performance. So if you know someone who needs that in their organization, I can help with that.
Okay. And how long have you lived here?
I have lived here since 2009.
Okay. So 10 years.
That's right.
All righty. And you attend a church here in the Woodlands?
Yeah, just off of Sawdust.
What church is that?
It is a church project.
Oh, okay. You said in the first question, under the general category, what are the 3 main reasons you're running for this office? And you said there are no conflicts of interest or anything like that. Number 3, you said the literature indicates a lack of leadership, a lack of good, effective leadership. What do you mean by that, as far as why you're running for office? And what literature are you pertaining to?
Okay. So I'm working on a PhD in leadership studies. So that's kind of in the context of the readings that I'm required to do for part of that. And I was trying to keep that general, that there are leadership issues generally, and that it's...
In the township board?
Well, I was being general, just
Okay.
in the world. But specifically, running for office, there's ethics involved in that too. And so I think you also need to be careful about pointing fingers unless it's absolutely necessary. However, as far as leadership, I'll say this, that, I can come back here. There are people who will say, bringing this more specifically to the Woodlands, there are people who would say that they have a lot of experience in leadership. Well, so did Hitler, so did Stalin. I'm not comparing anybody to them. I'm just simply using the extreme to make a point that people can have a great deal of leadership and still lack some of the things that are necessary. In this particular case, I think that there may be a lack of, or rather I should state it more positively, that it would be good if we had people who led, who had an understanding of direction and leadership more generally, having a unity of vision, being able as much as possible to bring people together toward a vision, because right now obviously we're very torn in how we see incorporation as an issue. So there's a process that if incorporation were to happen, we would need to go through in order to educate people.
I got a follow-on to that, but
Yeah,
David,
yeah.
go ahead.
The state legislature passed a new law, like restricting taxes and tax growth in the future to 3.5% without a vote. So that changes the political structure within cities and school districts now, right? The Woodlands budget is tight right now, and they're talking about a tax increase versus a you know, versus keeping it the effective rate. And it looks difficult going forward, you know. They've been a good organization in cutting taxes going through, but now it's tight. So how would you save money instead of raising taxes? What services or what structure within the township could we do with less in order not to increase the taxes?
Strangely enough, I'm actually recommending spending a little bit of money on a particular unit that I would call the Office of Leadership and Budget. And through that, we would use that office, which would report directly to the township board, to help us in, first of all, obtaining the information that we need so that we're not relying on information from the bureaucracy, and also as a means of controlling. Second of all, it's been recommended to me that I don't want to start naming services right now, but there are things that, there are luxuries that we currently have that we can do without as time goes forward. So, you know, if you look at a chart and you see how the Woodlands is in a situation where we can't expand, this is a problem. This also means that taxes are going to increase if we don't find revenues to replace that. So we need to be looking at the possibility of revenues to replace that. Increase retail, look for ways to expand it, but right now it's not looking like we can do that very easily. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that we're in extra ETJ. And any monies, if we expanded or purchased property, and any of the taxes for that would go to, let's say, if it was Houston or somewhere else. So I think there's ways we can reduce spending, but we also have to bring revenue in.
Real quick, who would
Yes, sir.
serve on that leadership and budget committee?
Well, so that's not a committee. I would recommend one FTE, someone
What
who,
is the FT?
full-time employee.
One
If you go to my website, it has more detail in it. We might not have time to get into that,
Okay,
but that would be something that would help us.
Try to get quicker on
all right.
that. Can you make it louder?
I understand you're saying that right now, basically, you're against incorporation because you don't have the information that you need. So my question is, what do you think the residents of the Woodlands should do to prevent County Commissioner Riley's hell-bent desire and activity to put an FM 1960 type road through the Woodlands? How would you stop that?
Okay, well, first of all, I happen to be privy to information that one of the members on the county, information has been brought to me that indicates that an individual is actually purchasing property south of the Woodlands.
That's true.
So, in addition to that, some of the legal findings and opinions that I've seen recently, I'm having discussions with people about, indicate that the county actually has the authority to put something, even if we were incorporated, even if we were a home rule city. Right now, the legal opinions that I have seen and I'm being told indicate that the county can just put one in regardless.
What legal opinion? Whose legal opinion is that?
I will have to find that information and get that to you, but there's a website in particular that was put together by, I'm struggling to remember her name. I can get that information to you.
Now, if I'm correct, a section of that road that you're talking about, the Charlie Rowley, he's, as the county,
Yeah.
not him personally, but the county has purchased that property. That a section of that road actually would be in the incorporated area of the Woodlands. You're saying the county could override the incorporated
Yes,
city
sir.
of the Woodlands and
Well-
do what it wanted to the roads without the permission of the city?
Correct.
And that's a legal opinion that
Yes,
you've
sir.
gotten on a website somewhere?
Well,
The reason I say that is because my dad, who's a judge, he always said, every lawyer thinks they have a case. So a legal opinion on its own.
Well, it's not just an opinion, so this
Uh-huh.
was tested in the courts. So apparently, and I can get that for you, it may be difficult for me to pull it up, and I have actually all the information downloaded into my computer, so I can recall it and get the letter for you. I don't recall the name of the gentleman, but he's a lawyer who used to be part of ExxonMobil.
Right.
He retired from there, and he's just a resident. Of course, you know, you can have bias one way or the other. First of all, I want to correct that. I didn't say I was necessarily against incorporation.
Well, yeah, I said you're against it until you, right now, because you don't have the information you need. That's what you said, correct? I mean,
Well,
tell me.
well, more precisely, I think what we need to be doing is we need to be moving, because if, it's based on several factors. One is, like, there was talk of annexation. Well, those rules could change. There could be a situation where we may need to annex. And if it's the case that we need to, it takes some time, quite some time, to get that done. So if you don't have a plan in place, if you're not moving towards that, you can't later just suddenly do it. So to me, it's important that we move as if it's absolutely necessary. And then as we go through that process, it's a process of educating people. And then through that, we will better learn, we will narrow down whether it's something we really want to do as a community. But I think it's incumbent upon us to try and bring people together and have 80% or more of people voting for or against, rather than just having a divided place and people being upset with the way it's going. And more information needs to get out in order to intelligently make that decision.
Following on with that line of thinking, you commented earlier about the divisions. I kind of understood that you are saying that there is a lack of leadership, proper leadership, effective leadership in the Woodlands because there is such a dichotomy over this important issue. That's how I took your earlier comments, and that seems to be consistent with what you just said. So if you extrapolate that a little bit, or just change the focus a little bit and say the U.S., obviously there are quite a bit of divisions in the U.S. Do you think that there's any effective leadership that could bridge those and bring people together? Can you get an 80% vote on any of those controversial issues in the U.S.? What about the state of Texas? Do we have effective leadership there, or we're going to get 80% vote on what? So what I'm saying is your criteria seems to be we need to bring people together, or else you don't have effective leadership. And what I'm saying is I'm struggling with that.
Yeah, no, definitely not exactly that, but I include that as part of it. So you understand that I'm working in a PhD program in leadership, so I know a little bit about it. That is something that I include as part of that for the Woodlands specifically. However, on a national level, I mean, even on a local level, you can't lead when people don't want to follow. So to some extent, that could be a reflection on a leader, and it might not be a reflection on a leader. However, in the Woodlands specifically, we have not had people really, since Mitchell passed away, we don't have someone creating a vision. Everyone talks about what Mitchell did or what he would have done some time ago. We need to have a vision. There's certain critical aspects of leadership that are important, and one of those is having a vision. And unity of that vision is nice. It would be great if, like in the past, we've had votes where it went 80% or above. It would be great if we could do that, and I think it's something that we should work towards. It may not happen. Just because you have someone, like, I'll be specific, like with President Trump, just because you have a bunch of people who are opposed to him and would, if he said the sky is blue, they'd say it's green, just to be different. So no, it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have good or effective leadership and are doing the right things. But in this particular case, I think it is the case that we have not come together and created a vision and sold that vision effectively to the Woodlands. I don't even see it happening. In fact, case in point, Don Norrell is somebody who's leaving in April. He's leaving, he's going to Dallas. And he's not going to be here. When he made the announcement, the reason why he made the announcement when he did is to give the Woodlands Township time to have someone else in. I think that we should have someone in as soon as possible to have some overlap so that he has some chance to convey some of the information to the new person about what needs to be done. This is an issue of effectiveness and efficiency and doing things well, in my view. Leadership would be, as soon as you get information that indicates he's not going to be here, take action. We're only now just starting to take action on it. To me, that's a lack of leadership.
When did he make the announcement that he was leaving, and how long does he have till he leaves?
Well, he's leaving in April. I don't recall exactly when the announcement came out. I'd have to double check that.
So there's no succession plan in place, is that what you're saying?
No, sir, they're gonna have discussions about it at the next meeting, discussions. It's on the agenda to talk about it. But as soon as that was announced, it should have been on the agenda next time, in my view.
Okay, aside from the incorporation issue, are there a thing or two or three that the current leadership has done that you think they shouldn't have or should have done that they didn't do? Buses, trucks, ducks in the lake, roads, schools, taxes, any decisions they've made that you would have done differently? Ducks.
I like the
Well,
ducks.
I just mentioned one with Don Norrell.
I guess they made some decisions that's the basis of one of these questions about funding senior pickup and the trolleys and those sorts of things.
Well, since I wrote that, I went to the candidate, there's a candidate meeting where they explain the governance of the Woodlands a little more, and how the budget works and everything like that. It was a huge folder, which I went through in its entirety. And the Woodlands is a little different because it's a special district. It's not a typical governance type of thing, and they have revenues coming from one place and another. But the Woodlands does all of it, and one of the missions of the Woodlands includes economic development. So it's not a regular town, it's not a regular city. So it does have missions other than one would expect a typical government to have, and the way it currently exists. So this kind of complicates things. Do they do things? Has the board made decisions?
Are we gonna be able to tell if you replace one of those guys? Are things gonna be different?
Yes. So I explain it in more detail on my website. I encourage you to go to that. But it would be a huge difference. It'd be a huge difference. And by the way, I need to make a caveat. Sometimes politicians come up and they say something. They say, "Well, I'm going to do this." Really, there's in my case, there's 6 other people, so I can't guarantee what's going to happen. But with your help and with the help of other people, if I get on there, it's very profound having an office of leadership and budget, because it will allow us not only to get information, but it will allow us to be more efficient and effective in what we do, and allow us to get information directly from what's going on in the Woodlands without having to rely on the bureaucracy, which is a huge thing. So that you would see a massive difference. And the Woodlands has to take on new responsibilities. For example, a development company is not going to be cutting grass. We're going to be responsible for that. So how are we going to do that? So all of these things can be better controlled and information exchanged better without putting a burden on the bureaucracy through having that. If I can get that passed, and I can do that with your help and other people's help, it'll make a huge difference.
Okay.
The, following on that, the Office of Leadership and Budget kind of seems like another layer in there. And we're talking hiring another person to fill that position, or is that not already accounted for? Is Monique Sharp not doing that along with Don Norrell or whoever else will come in there?
I wish you could have been in the meeting. The candidate school is what it's called. It's interesting to see the candidates who are up there listening to this, and we had a chance to exchange, and it really shows you the depth. I wish it was recorded, because then you would really see the depth of understanding, the difference between some of the candidates who are up. I don't want to toot my own horn here, but I can tell you that the depth of my understanding was quite a bit better than some people in the room. And I'll tell you that Don Norrell, when he saw me, he came up to me and he shook my hand, and afterwards he sought me out to shake my hand. I'm the only candidate in there that he did that to and he talked to, because he knows, as someone who spent many years doing this, that I have a depth of understanding that some of these other people simply don't have. So, I'm sorry, what was your question? I wanted to return back.
Well, it was a follow-on to Dennis's, and mine was in specifically about the new office that you're talking about.
Oh, right.
Leadership and budget.
I have a lot of great things to say about the Woodlands Township, however, it is still a bureaucracy. And because of that, information, I'm not saying it's necessarily purposely withheld, but sometimes it is. Sometimes people ask for information and they don't get it. And something like this that answers directly to the township board, that has direct access to the information that's needed, not only will it provide information to us as the board, it will provide information to you. So when you need information.
Before we run out of time, how far are we from completion of the study, percent-wise? Just give me a percent, that's all I'm looking
I do not know the answer to that. I don't know the
for.
answer.
Halfway, 3/4, 10%, 90%? No.
I do not recall all the things that they're gonna look at. So I know the next thing is the financial piece, and that's the big piece, because nothing else really matters until we get that. I don't recall all the things on that list that they're gonna be looking at.
Recently, we've had a lot of,
We're about halfway through, 30 minutes.
we've had a lot of discussion about Conroe ISD school bond. And one thing that I was unaware of was that when a trustee joins the board, the superintendent puts a document in front of him that says, we'd like you to sign this, which basically says that if you have any, you only have dealings with the superintendent and none of his subordinates. So I don't know if the township has a similar policy. You know, it's my first time I've ever heard, I'm new to this game. But would you sign such a document? If you would, why would you sign it?
No, I can tell you right now. If I'm elected into office, there is no incentive, there's no reason for me to sign that. That's precisely why we need this other thing, because, you know, we have very dedicated people who volunteer, but you need someone there who's going to be able to extract the information that you need. And one of the things I was going to mention, being the candidate school, when I was asking questions, they could not sometimes provide the information to basic questions I was asking for, statistics, for basic information that would enable me to make good decisions. And if they don't have that information, then we need a way to collect it. And also, directly to your point, I'm so glad you brought that up, so now you can see there is insight that you have there about being able to extract information from the bureaucracy. I can tell you that in that meeting, for example, Don Norrell was directing us to him. He asked us that afterwards, if he had any questions directed to him or his executive secretary. So he really doesn't want, he wants to control the information, and I understand that, and I understand how bureaucracy works, and this is precisely why we need that, because not only can we get information, but once it's there, it's not gonna go away, and it will enable the public to get information. That would be very hard to get it now. I can tell you, for example, Mike Bass, I talked with Steve Toth, I talked with Mike Bass, I talked with a whole bunch of people to get information from them. Mike Bass has attempted to get information from them, and they've just turned him down. So if he can't get information, he used to be a former board member, do you think you can get information? So this will be something that will make the Woodlands more transparent and open. I haven't heard anybody else talking about this. And it's interesting, because sometimes when I put things up on my website, other people seem to be reviewing it, and then they'll come up with it. It wouldn't surprise me if someone started talking about this at some point later when they realize exactly what's going on. But at this moment, I'm the only one who's talking about something like this. And it sounds counterintuitive to spend a little bit more money, but the savings are going to be huge. When you talk about some of the things that are spent, a small salary versus $1.7 million for Alpha and Omega, when you could reduce expensive and have more police, for example, there's different things here. I'm not suggesting one thing or another, I'm just saying that there are expenses that are going on that might be able to be better spent. And this person would be looking into that on behalf of the board as well, have direct access to that information.
In what county commissioner's precinct do you live?
Noack.
Okay, 3.
I'm 49.
So, since right now, that's basically who is responsible for the Woodlands, Commissioner 2 and Commissioner 3, Riley and Noack. My question to you is, what is your assessment of how well or not those county commissioners have met the needs of the Woodlands as a community?
I think they're focused on their own territories, if you will.
So basically you're saying they don't provide the attention you feel they should, the focus you feel they should for the Woodlands? Let me put it to you this way. Do you feel they share your vision of the future for the Woodlands community?
Of course not. And they have a different responsibility, and I understand that, well, as much as they get paid, one would think that they'd be able to spend a little more time on those things. But they have a focus, one presumes, and they're working on that focus. So to me, again, that comes back to the leadership aspect, is that it would be on us to make them see that, to share our vision with people and with them, residents, and with the elected leadership as well. And I think there's sometimes ways of getting people's attention. So,
Well, for right now, you mentioned the possible incorporation be either as Conroe or as Houston. I think you mentioned it, or as the Woodlands.
right.
So my question to you is, which of those 3 options would meet your future, the vision for the future of the Woodlands?
Well, I don't think it's desirable for the Woodlands to be part of Houston.
Conroe?
Not especially. I mean, I think if you were to talk to most of the residents, they would want to determine their own.
So basically you're saying we should incorporate the Woodlands, correct?
Yes, at some point, absolutely.
So at some point, let's say it's 10 years from now, which do you think would be the most cost effective in terms of tax dollars and so forth? To do it now or to do it later in the future?
I mean, based on the information I have right now, it would indicate in the future. Yeah, and there are advantages to I'm still examining this more and more and more.
Uh-huh.
But at this point, it looks like in the future, everything you do increases. Any change you make. There's a document that was created during the times when they turned the township into the township, and the board did a lot of work back then and wrote some documents. I'm trying to get my hands on those documents to see what they said. But at this point, it looks like the way it was structured, it was intended to be as efficient as possible at the time that they knew how to do it. I think when you do become a city, you do increase taxes. I think it's inevitable that taxes would increase. However, when you're dealing with government, you're often dealing with the lesser of two evils. So you may see that in who you vote for sometimes, whether on a national, state, or whatever level, and it happens a lot. So when we're dealing with incorporation, no one wants taxes to increase, but I'm telling you where we are right now. The situation is that without the ability of the Woodlands to expand, our tax base, the money that we're getting from that is decreasing, and it's decreasing at a rapid rate. So we need to do something, we need to put some focus on it. And if we don't, our taxes are gonna start increasing anyway. And how far off in the future, there's a point to where there's a diminishing return. So, obviously if we're a part of Houston, taxes would be really high. Do you agree with me there? So we don't want that. So would it be better?
Their taxes rate is currently 2.5 times higher than what the Woodlands has now. Conroe's is 1.8 times higher than what they have now.
We decreased by 4.11, I understand, and they increased by 8, just because of the fact that in the future they might not be able to increase it as much as they want to because of what you were talking about. So, yeah, I don't think we want that. and I think we want more control over it. But, so then that gets us, at some point, there's been some people say, there's absolutely no benefit to incorporation. Really? Well, at some point, you know, going back to that naivete, at some point, we're gonna be facing that because cities grow. So if that's going to happen sometime in the future, let's be a little forward looking and say, what would be the lesser of the evils there? So I think the less evil of all of them. Now, so the question is, you know, how much is it gonna cost? And that's what we don't know, but I can tell you, I've had a meeting with a gentleman who was just dead set against incorporation, and he would point out the number in the matrix study and say, well, see, it says it will increase this. And I said, well, what does it say at the minimum? And it was fairly negligible. He didn't like that number in there. So depending on who you talk to, you know, it was doubled, in the matrix study it was near doubled, and then at the minimum, at the maximum, and near the minimum, it was negligible. So this is where I think some of my skills will come in handy, because when those numbers come out, I'm gonna be looking into what methods were used and how did you get them and how accurate are they. So that's what I'm gonna be interested in.
Good.
Okay, obviously, financial considerations are very important. Are there other considerations that would make it more advantageous to incorporate now? Or put it this way, what would you lose by delaying incorporation?
What would you lose by incorporating that?
By delaying incorporation?
By delaying incorporation? Well, first of all, I don't think you can incorporate now, because it's a process. You have to check boxes. So I think the earliest you could get there would be 2021.
Okay,
So I've
well,
heard of-
call that now.
Okay. What would you lose? I think there is inevitable increase in costs.
I said other than costs.
Other than costs, okay.
What are the pros and cons other than costs? What do you lose if you wait till 2057?
Well, you lose the opportunity to, oh, well, yeah, that's a good point. Well, there's the political aspect. The nature of the woodlands may change so much that you lose the ability to, honestly, I don't know yet. I'm looking for that. But there's certainly political considerations.
Okay,
I'd love to hear from you what you think is lost.
okay. Switching horses, you've talked about the Mitchell vision and so forth, and the fact that it changed and so forth. What is your vision for the Woodlands? If you were George Mitchell, what would you like to see added? What would you like to see changed? In other words, take the big picture, and if you were king for a day, how would you change the picture from now to the picture you'd like to see, the goal?
I think there's a lot of good things about the woodlands, but the big issue, I think, the biggest issue in the woodlands is economic development versus the wishes of the residents. So honestly, it's on a trajectory that I think is pretty decent. The problem is when economic development always gets the upper hand, then I think it's increasingly worse for residents.
Quality of life.
So,
Economics up, quality of life down.
well, also there's an aspect of economic development where it helps to keep taxes low. So we get invaded, if you will, by the triathlon or other events. So that helps to keep taxes lower. So if you don't have that at all, then you're talking about forking out a little more money. So there's a balance there that has to be reached. However, the balance so far has always seemed to lean in the direction of the economic development. Housing going up, that is different than what was originally there. So quality of life issues that suffer as a result of the economic development. So I think that balance might need to shift back in the favor of the residents.
Okay, Dennis?
Okay. Was that candidate class well attended? Any particular candidates that weren't there?
Well, those who were already on the board were not there. I can tell you all my, with the exception of Ann Snyder, those who I was, who are running against me were there.
I was thinking about the new candidates, not necessarily the incumbents, but
No, all the ones that I am running against for position 6, they were there.
okay. How long have you voted Republican and supported the Republican Party?
Well, I moved back from England. I lived in England. My dad was a preacher and a missionary. It's not like living in Africa, a higher standard of living. But we came back in let me get this right, I believe it was 92, summer of 92. But I couldn't vote yet, so about another year. So ever since I could vote, from about age 18 on, I voted. And when I moved here, I became a member of the Republican Party. And I occasionally go to the executive committee meetings and things like that.
Have you ever contributed to the Democratic Party?
No.
Or the BLM, Planned Parenthood, Rainbow Coalition, any of those other type of groups?
I don't know, what is BLM?
Black Lives Matter,
Oh,
Occupy Wall Street. You know, there's so many groups, I could not name them all, but most of them you probably would recognize. We would probably frown on support of some of these groups and just want to know if you supported them before we would endorse you and have somebody come and say, why did you endorse that guy?
right, nope,
No surprises coming?
never happened.
And
Never
I
happened.
saw no arrests, no convictions.
No, correct. And I've got 30 seconds, so I want to mention, so it doesn't surprise you. My wife is Russian. She was born and raised in Russia. We met through a website, eHarmony, where it matches you up
Sure.
on long-term compatibility. Short story, her grandfather was, he mentioned about the possibility of not liking communism. When he was 17, he was sent to the Gulag, got out 2 years, after 2 years for good behavior, but he was left for dead. Long story there, but my wife isn't big on socialism, if you know what I mean. She's quite the opposite. So just because you hear she's Russian or whatever, she's one of the best people, to me, she's the best person you could ever meet in the world. And you should definitely meet her, she's a great person.
She is a registered Republican.
Well, she just got, yes,
Okay.
she just got her citizenship. She had the opportunity to get it, but she just never completed it because she felt like whenever we did that she felt like she didn't have the money to do it. I don't know where she got that from, but, so I helped her to complete the paperwork and everything. So only recently she got it, so, as soon as she did, she, registered. So I'm not sure if she registered in this state you have to, but I guarantee you
You
she's.
can register, yeah.
So when she registered, she hasn't voted yet. I mean, it only just recently occurred. And I purchased a gun for her, but she hasn't gotten her license yet for that. But that's not a huge concern for her.
So she won't be able to vote for you, huh?
To vote for me?
For you, yeah.
I don't understand.
She's registered, right? She's a registered voter? or-
Yes, she's a registered voter. She's on the list. She's got her VUID number. So I'm not sure exactly at what point she registers as a Republican. But I purchased for her, put it this way, I went to a Republican meeting and I purchased one of those shirts for her. She was very excited to get it. Now, she's more American than a lot of Americans.
Yeah, there's not a registered Republican.
Just
It's
say-
just you vote Republican or you vote Democrat in the primaries.
Or you don't
That's
vote.
the distinction.
not registered.
Ignore what Dennis
Yeah,
said.
you're not a
You don't
But you
register
have
as
to
a
declare.
Republican.
No,
No,
not that.
no.
No,
You have to
Well, when
declare
you
when
go-
you go in to
Right,
vote.
right. But that's
on
not,
which ballot you're gonna vote.
You pick.
on. That's-
but it's
that's the
recorded. It's
primary.
recorded though.
oh, yeah,
Sure, yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you're not a registered.
Not a registered Republican.
Republican or a Democrat.
You're a registered Republican voter.
no.
No,
No.
Well,
I don't know
don't
where
think
you're
I-
getting that
Well,
from this.
yeah, you're registered in the sense that you're registered to vote, but you're not registered
Correct.
as a Republican.
Correct.
You are a Republican, but you have to declare, and that's recorded. So to me, it kind of is a registered. It's
You don't
really,
declare either.
no.
You just go in and you tell them, if you vote in the primary, you tell them, I want to vote Republican or I want to vote Democrat. Next year you can switch it if you want. It's, you just decide that day. We have what's called an open primary in Texas, unlike some other states.
Yeah, I used to live in South Carolina, and over there, yeah, you didn't have to like declare or anything.
Same here.
In fact, it was a strategy among some political people to vote in the opposite one, to
Yeah.
try and influence.
That happens here.
To try and influence.
A lot. So let me ask you, we've got less than 10 minutes and.
Feel free to ask me any questions later.
Got just a few minutes. Okay, so what do you think about a performing arts complex and a private-public partnership to pay for that or develop it?
That's where it gets interesting with the monies that come in. So it depends on where the revenues come in. There's economic development accounts that are separate. So I disagree with one particular person on the board who seems to like to funnel money to particular groups and individuals. Totally wrong. I'm not for that.
Nonprofit groups, is that what you mean?
Right. In particular artists. Apparently, we have a member on the board who seems to want to support certain groups or certain artists, which,
Are they gonna stay, are they running for re-election? Are they gonna still be an incumbent, or are they,
well, that's my opponent.
are they off the board?
That person's on the board right now.
Okay, will they be on the board after this?
Well, it depends on whether I win or not.
Okay, were they running, is my question?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So, to the extent that it may contribute to economic development, so this is something you'd have to look at, but if it contributes to economic development, that brings money into the woodlands so that it reduces taxes. So that, because of the nature of the woodlands, I think it's something that potentially could be funded on the grounds that a cost-benefit analysis, that the people who pay for it get a return on the investment. So it'd be an ROI type of cost-benefit thing. If it comes back and it works, and the monies have to be not taxed, where the money comes from.
Okay. 24 seconds. Okay, you said you had a concern about onboarding procedures in the woodlands. What concerns do you have about the onboarding process as far as, I assume you mean hiring into the township?
Oh. Yeah, so I just had a concern with that I would want to look into. So for example, there's tests that they give people. And I can tell you many years ago when I first got out of the military, and thank you for your service, it looked like you were a ranger as well. Dad, okay, so I was in the Army. But when I got out of the Army, I looked at taking a job for Lowe's, for example, and I'm privy to a lot of information, like research on things. So I was asked a question on the Lowe's test. Do you think more people can be, I can't remember exactly how to put it, trusted or something like that. I just seen a statistic that indicated that slightly above half committed some sort of lie or deceit or something like this. So I answered actually based on the fact, which is no, but I think what they were looking for was really more of a psychological thing. Like, when you approach people, do you treat them as if they're not trustworthy, or do you treat them as if they were? I think that's what they were really looking for. So I answered it based on the facts, not really what they were looking for. So sometimes when you have tests that you give, these tests can produce results that are not useful. And I've come across information that indicates that some of the tests that they may use, it concerns me that, first of all, they might come up with the wrong results of people you're looking for, and they unnecessarily take people out. And I'm kind of concerned as to exactly what it is they're looking for. I'd like to know. And I think that's something that voters should know. I don't think that the process that they use should necessarily be kept under wraps. And then, anyway, that's, yeah.
Anybody have a must-ask question? Because we only got like 5 or 4 minutes left. or 4 or 5 minutes. We good?
Sure. Back to the Corporation of Woodlands. Because I'm pretty sure that's going to be a major, the issue for this election. And I think it's best to be as clear as possible. Now, again, you're saying you need more information, but in our conversations today, I think you've established that incorporating as the Woodlands as opposed to be part of some other city is really the only path to go for the Woodlands to remain the Woodlands. I don't see how anybody could argue against that. We didn't really discuss whether or not you would favor absolutely never incorporating, and I can't see how, well, you already said our county commissioners don't really have the vision of the Woodlands as the centerpiece of their governing. All right, so we established that too. I think we're down to the question of when, and I believe you said, and this is where I want you to correct me or explain, that the hesitation is as to the cost. So my question basically is, how is incorporating later going to cost any less than incorporating now? What would be the savings? And by now we mean 2021.
So it's kind of like with the issue with the Woodlands being able to expand. Right now,
Well, by expanding, you said it's landlocked, you mean?
Right,
In
exactly.
what way? Go ahead.
yeah, because a lot of monies that we have coming in are a result of development and other activities like that. And if you look at the line, it's going way down.
Sure.
So
There has to be a transition.
exactly.
On
So at some
revenue,
point,
okay.
either we have to do something to increase revenues, or taxes are going to go up.
Well, if I may again, how does that change incorporating later versus 2021?
Because taxes will go up now.
And they wouldn't later in those same circumstances?
Of course they would, yes. So when you incorporate, taxes will go up. I don't know, I honestly don't know if it's negligible or if it's twice as much. So I don't know the answer to that. I don't know exactly what it is, and people on different sides are saying different things. Well, I'm gonna say that when they tell me to my face that they will incorporate at all costs, or they won't incorporate at all costs, these people have told me this to my face, then I'm reluctant to believe the information that they're providing to me. When the
Right.
study comes out, and there's methods that they've used, and it's within certain confidence levels, and I can say, okay, I've got confidence in this study, and then we have a better idea when we narrow what that is. But from negligible, we need to know the costs. So, yeah, taxes would start increasing at a minimum because of this. At a minimum because once we start collecting taxes for the city of the Woodlands, if you will, then the county still collects. So there would be an increase for the Woodlands town, or for the Woodlands city, without a corresponding decrease for the county. So just on that alone, there will be a negligible increase. So exactly what that is, how can anybody make a reasonable decision if you don't know what you're buying and how much that is? I want to know, like, what other values, maybe there's something that I'm missing, and I want to know what that is, because I'm looking. Right now, I'm an open book. People, and this is where I struggle, because people that I know on both sides, they want me to declare, you have to be yes, you have to be no. And I'm just trying to be as honest and open about the situation as I can, and I'm not sitting on the fence. I'm just where the information leads me at this point. And I don't know, I'm looking for all the costs and benefits, and I'm gathering this information. If there's something about the values that indicates that we should do it sooner, then I would like to know what that is. But this is the hardest part, because I want, in a way, to tell some people who are friends that I'm for their position, but I can't do that. I just can't. I can't go out there and just tell people what they want to hear. I have to assess the situation, and the information that I have right now that I know doesn't allow me to do that right now. So I don't know, any information you want to provide about the values that would indicate sooner, I would like
Sure.
to know.
I guess
So
we're out
we
of
went a little
time.
longer, we want to go ahead and close,
Okay.
you got about 4 minutes. Or 5 if you
Come back
need
to
it.
this. Well, the stuff I have to say here, I think you guys don't really know. So I guess in closing, I would just say, yeah, that's one of my biggest struggles. I don't want to tell people something and then later come back and say, well, you lied to us, or any of this. There's people demanding, but I think that you can be honest and say, I'm just going this way and I'm trying to figure out what the best thing is. The way I see it is there's 3 major aspects right now. There's the legal, there's the political, and then there's the practical / administrative. Right now, legal, and I can provide that information to you as far as, it's not just an opinion, it's there were actual cases in Houston.
Sure.
Where this was tested in the courts and it was found that the county could do it and they went ahead and did it. And I don't recall right off the top of my head the name of that case, but it actually occurred. So there's some precedent there. So the legal seems to be one of the few things that seem to be tied up. The other 2 aren't. And it's very important, the political aspect of it and the administrative practical. So I'm hoping to kind of tie those things up. And that's kind of where I am. And I would love to hear any information you want to convey to me about if there's something I'm not seeing, and I don't doubt that there is.
All right, well, good deal. Well, thanks for coming in tonight.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Best of luck in your campaign,
Thank
and